Hello and welcome. I am Megan Howard, the Youth Education Advocate for RAMP, which is a Center for Independent Living. We serve Winnebago, DeKalb, Stevenson, and Boone counties in northern Illinois. And the webinar today is on understanding disability and advocacy. So we'll start by talking about what is a disability. Disability is an umbrella word covering losses, activity limitations, and participation restrictions. They can be visible or hidden, temporary or permanent, and may have a large or small impact on a person's strengths. Disability is defined as an impairment in one or more major life activities, such as walking, seeing, hearing, speaking, breathing, learning, working, or caring for oneself. Disability crosses every social, economic, gender, religious, and ethnic boundaries. Anyone at any time can acquire a disability. You can be born with a disability, you can acquire one by accident or illness, and you can acquire a disability through the natural aging process. So at this time, I'd like you to try to think about an example of a visible disability that you have seen. Some examples might include paraplegia or quadriplegia, cerebral palsy, spina bifida, amputations, Down syndrome, or paralysis. There are also hidden disabilities. Some of the hidden disabilities might include mental illness, learning disabilities, chronic pain, arthritis, traumatic brain injuries, epilepsy, ADHD, anxiety, or depression. Obviously, these lists do not include every disability. It's just to get you thinking about a hidden versus a visible disability. And although we may not know someone has a disability because you can't see it, it doesn't mean that they don't have a legitimate disability and may need an accommodation or assistance. And when advocating or assisting an individual with a disability, use open communication to explore what works best for them. So person-first language puts the person first and the disability second, acknowledging that the disability is part of who they are, but it does not define them. So we'll go through some examples here. So Samantha is autistic is not an example of person-first language. Instead, person-first would say Samantha has autism. When you say autistic, it does kind of make it sound like that is who she is. Samantha is autistic. When you say Samantha has autism, it makes you think that Samantha is many things, but autism is a part of who she is. It's not who she is. We don't say people are crazy. Instead, you can say Bobby is a person who has mental illness. And then we don't say that Stephen is bound to a wheelchair because wheelchairs do not bind people. They are freeing. They give them the ability to go places and leave their homes and do things that they want to do. So instead we say Stephen uses a wheelchair. It is also important to note that individuals with disabilities have their own preference. So while person-first language is commonly accepted, not every individual with a disability uses it. So what makes up someone's identity? Every part of a person creates their identity, which includes physical and visual attributes, their emotional qualities, learning style, communication style, religious beliefs, and their personality qualities, and their disability. Not any one of these things define identity, but identity is all of these things combined. When you're looking at identity, if any of the attributes were missing or altered, then the entire identity would be changed. Our identities are what impact our perception and life experiences. When you have a disability, your disability is an important part of who you are and what you choose your role to be within society. It is important for individuals with disability to know themselves and to understand their disability. Without that knowledge, They're not able to own their identity, advocate for themselves, or excel at what they do best. Understanding how disability affects someone individually gives them the ability and power to express themselves. So I have a little question here for you. What is the biggest barrier for individuals with disabilities? Is it physical obstacles, other people's attitudes, or their disability? It's actually other people's attitudes. Attitudinal barriers can come in the form of pity, where people feel sorry for individuals with disabilities and cannot imagine how it would be to have a disability. Ignorance, where people with disabilities are looked at as unable to accomplish a typical activity of daily living. Fear, where many people are cautious when interacting with someone who has a disability because they don't want to say the wrong thing. And then there's also the spread effect. Many people assume that a person's disability affects their senses, personality, abilities, and them as a whole person. So in the United States, the history for many people with disabilities has been separation, isolation, shame, and institutionalization. Society's fear, assumptions, and stereotypes about people with disabilities is what has caused this isolation and discomfort about being around or hiring people with disabilities. Centers for Independent Living were founded to remove barriers and help individuals with disabilities work on skills that they need to live independently instead of in institutions. I'm going to share a video with you on Ed Roberts, who founded Centers for Independent Living and was a strong advocate for himself and others. He faced many barriers in his life, but believed that there were no limits to what he could do.
Title slide, freewheeling.
I've had people come up to me and say, "Oh, I'd rather be dead than be like you." Good morning. Good morning. And they miss it so much because life is such a joy. There's so much to life if you're into it. There's so many reasons to die if you're not at all.
Ed Roberts has helped millions of people find a reason to live. He helped launch a civil rights movement for people with disabilities so they could live freely integrated in their communities, not shut away in institutions. But when he first contracted polio at the age of 14, that idea was a long way off. His mother, Zona Roberts, remembers all too well the doctor's attitude when he told her Ed would live.
The next morning I said to the doctor I was glad that he had survived, and he wanted to know why. Would I like to spend the rest of my life in an iron lung? What would it be like? The poor man was horrified.
Roberts himself did not want to live.
I decided to die in the beginning. People told me basically that I would have no life. And when you're in an iron lung and you're paralyzed from the neck down, in a hospital where their whole job is to save your life, you've got to be pretty creative to kill yourself.
Roberts starved himself down to 50 pounds, and then the last of his special duty nurses left her post.
The next day I decided to live and I started eating. And I know what the reason was. There is nothing in life if you're not in control of what happens to you. And I think that was when I began to realize that I had a choice over living and dying. And that I really wanted to live and to take control of my own life.
Except for 2 fingers, Roberts is paralyzed from the neck down. He spends much of his time in an iron lung. But from the beginning, he learned to sit in a wheelchair, and he learned to breathe with the help of a portable respirator, forcing air into his lungs.
Ed Roberts talks to students.
And he learned to challenge society's low expectations of himself and other people with disabilities. He decided that his body may be limited, but his mind was not. The kid who had lived for baseball turned seriously to school, attending high school by phone hookup.
So I can remember wheeling down this for the first time in 1962, and there was a demonstration.
Roberts convinced a skeptical University of California to admit him. He became the first severely disabled student to attend. He had to live in Cowell Infirmary, the only place big enough for his 800-pound iron lung. Newspapers headlined the conventional wisdom. He proved them wrong, eventually earning a master's degree. And soon other quadriplegics joined him on campus. They called themselves the Rolling Quads and began inventing a new world for themselves.
We realized that we could change some things. And first thing we do is change our own attitudes for ourselves. Be proud of who we were and what we were. And go out and change it for others and for ourselves. The most important part of that is working with other people. Moving away from your own problems to help somebody else. And that liberated me. When I realized I could help others, it made me a lot freer to help myself.
At the university, the Rolling Quads literally opened the door for other students like them. They remade the Berkeley campus into one of the most physically accessible in the country, with a program designed to aid students with disabilities. Hundreds have earned their degrees since then, without living like patients in the infirmary.
What's it like living here now? Is it very different?
Naomi Armenta is a senior.
I guess so. It is pretty much the only place I've ever been where I can be kind of anonymous as the disabled person. You know, people say, oh, the woman in the wheelchair, and they don't automatically know it's me. There are people around here in wheelchairs that I don't know. So, I mean, that's kind of nice in a way because it takes the pressure off. You know, you don't always have to be an activist for yourself.
Roberts and his friends realized that access to education was only a beginning. They wanted to leave the campus, have jobs, and participate in their communities like everyone else.
And to recognize that we didn't want to live in an institution. I remember one dean at the university said, oh, you'll finish your PhD, and then you'll live in a nursing home. And I said, no, that's not the plan. We're here to change that whole idea.
Their new idea they called independent living.
Independent living is a psychological idea much more than a physical concept.
Assistant helps Roberts into car.
I'm paralyzed from the neck down, but I'm completely in control of my own life. I make decisions about what I want. And when you begin to believe that, it's very empowering and powerful. And then it becomes, it's almost, when it catches on with other people, they see, well, if he can do that, why can't I?
They set up a place to spread that word and provided job training, housing referral, and skills to live ordinary lives. The center turned Berkeley into the first city with curb cuts, providing people with the most basic access to independent living. There are now hundreds of these centers throughout the world.
Our whole philosophy was, do not make other people with disabilities dependent on you. And our whole professional system is set up that way. Always ask, what do you want to do? Help people learn how to make their own decisions in their life. And you know what? It's that simple.
In 1975, Roberts had caught the eye of Governor Jerry Brown, who put him in charge of the California Department of Rehabilitation and its 2,200 employees. Along the way, Roberts had shattered another myth.
I was always told that I could never drive a power wheelchair, which meant that anytime I needed to move, I had to ask someone. And one thing you become very leery of is asking for too much. So you cut out part of your life, the things you'd like to do.
Like falling in love.
And all of a sudden, it became ridiculously inconvenient to have my attendant pushing me around. It was a real hindrance to intimacy. And being highly motivated, I decided to hell with all those comments, and I couldn't do it. I needed it for my life, and they got me in a power chair. And all we had to do is turn the controller around so I could pull. And I bounced off the walls a few times, and she jumped on my lap, and we run off in the sunset.
Roberts eventually married and fathered a son, Lee, now 16 years old. Roberts is divorced, but shares custody.
Ed and Lee Roberts at a baseball game.
Awesome.
I was told I would never be able to have a child. And it was one of those myths again. I mean, it just took finding the right woman in the right circumstances and getting together. And we had a kid. And he's totally the joy of my life. He teaches me every day that disability is irrelevant because I'm dad. I'm his father. And you can be a father in a wheelchair, or you can be a father walking around.
Lee feeds Ed fries.
You can be a father in a lot of ways.
Lee fixes Ed's respirator.
In 1983, Roberts co-founded and became president of the World Institute on Disability, a think tank which focuses on disability policy in an international arena. While there, he was awarded a MacArthur Foundation Genius Grant. In the national arena, one of the disability rights movement's greatest legislative achievements was the Americans with Disabilities Act. It bars discrimination in employment and guarantees access to public buildings, transportation, and communication services.
And today's legislation brings us closer to that day when no Americans will ever again be deprived of their basic guarantee of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
But laws are one thing, their implementation is another. Roberts was reminded of that one day on a visit to Washington, D.C. He was scheduled to appear live on CNN TV. The man who was instrumental in the first curb cuts in the nation missed the interview. Why? Right in front of the Capitol building, he had to search for a curb cut.
I think as we train professionals, architects, and others who work on this, they need to understand better what barrier-free design really means. It's good for everybody. When you put a curb cut in, not only can you get around, but so can strollers and all kinds of other things on wheels get around. So when we make changes, it's not for a large group.
People marching.
There are still other obstacles. They want the billions of dollars spent on shutting people away in institutions to be spent on attendance and assistive technology. Then, more of them can become productive, tax-paying members of their community at less cost to society and to themselves.
Right now, 75% of us are unemployed. Staggering figure, 75% of us. We have to show our society that disability doesn't affect work. If you're motivated to work, no matter how disabled, you can do a good job. Might need a little technology. You might need a little help, like personal assistance, but you can do the job.
There are many besides Roberts showing that they can do the job, and it doesn't necessarily require expensive technology. Hale Zukas is a policy analyst for the World Institute. He's been a major player in access to public transportation, including making elevators operable without the help of an attendant.
Man in power chair calls elevator.
You were actually in Arlington and in D.C.
Sometimes he needs an interpreter. Sometimes he needs a conversation board to express himself. But he's shown that, like streets without curb cuts, those are limitations that can be overcome. Yanina Saika became totally blind as a young adult. Each day she comes to work past a chirping street light. It lets her know when to cross. Those lights are partly the work of the Center for Independent Living. She manages WITNET, which puts people with disabilities on the information superhighway, and her job has been made possible by a talking computer.
Visually impaired woman typing.
But for all the progress that's been made in legislation and technology, society's myths still hold fast.
And our number one issue is still old attitudes towards us. And those old attitudes see us as helpless and unable. And disability can make you very strong and very able.
Okay, we're back. If you wish to talk to Ed Roberts, a victim of polio.
Not a victim.
Not a victim.
Not a victim. No, I think that's a real misperception.
What is the correct perception?
I was disabled by polio, but I am not a victim of polio in any sense of the word.
Technology, Roberts thinks, can level the playing field and help change those attitudes.
When I got my power chair, I didn't realize how much it would change me and the way I was perceived. When you're pushed up, people talk to the other person. And all of a sudden, people had to deal directly with me. Not only can I go wherever I wanted to go, when I wanted to go, but people didn't overlook me. They might look above me, but they had to deal with me directly, and that was very powerful.
At a march on Washington, disability rights leaders and congressional leaders alike sought him out.
What Ed Roberts has done, I think, for the disability community is he has gone to lawmakers and leaders in legislation and in the business community to show that even someone who is severely disabled, like Ed, can be mobile, he's smart as a whip, he can get a job done, he can organize, he can communicate effectively, and there's no reason why he should be discriminated against.
A lot of years ago, I decided that people were going to stare at me, and it was a lot better if I decided I was a star rather than a helpless cripple.
Ed at Lincoln Memorial.
We could change a lot of our own attitudes that way.
For all his accomplishments, Roberts likes to say that he's not a superhero, just a role model, living proof that severely disabled people can be masters of their own destinies.
Hey, we are here, and we are not going away.
I think that video is so powerful. Ed Roberts accomplished a great deal in his life, and he made great strides for the disability community. Now we're going to look at the medical model versus the independent living model. A significant part of disability history reflects society's perception of people with disabilities as medical problems that need to be fixed. Society is now starting to understand that people with disabilities are as capable and worthwhile as others and able to fully participate in life's experiences, responsibilities, and personal growth. So if you look at the chart here, in the medical model, the problem is within the individual and the need to fix that individual so that they can fit in with society. But in the independent living philosophy, the problem does not lie in the individual, but rather the environment. The independent living model looks at disability as part of the human condition and focuses on making changes in the environment so individuals with disabilities have the same accessibility as those without. The unfortunate result of the medical model of disability is isolation. The medical model stresses fixing the disability so that the person can be integrated into society. The independent living model fosters inclusion. Next, we're going to talk about some disability etiquette. Never assume that you know what a person with a disability wants or needs, and then if you are offering assistance, always wait for a response and then follow their instructions. When you're talking to a person with a disability, talk directly to that person, not their friend, companion, or sign language interpreter who may also be present. Respect all assistive devices as personal property. Unless given permission, do not move them, play with them, or use them. If you're talking to a person in a wheelchair for any length of time, try to sit down and place yourself at their eye level. Do not look away while talking with someone who is deaf or hard of hearing. If greeting someone who is blind or has a visual impairment, identify yourself and those who may be accompanying you. Do not pet or make a service dog the focus of conversation, and treat adults as adults. Disability touches everyone in some way. It's not a small population, but one that is constantly growing and diversifying. You're not expected to be an expert on disability, but focus on an individual's capabilities, skills, and interests. Our own beliefs and comfort levels around disability has a major impact on how we view, interact, and provide services and programs to individuals with disabilities. The combination of language and behavior is important to be aware of. Always be respectful, follow the lead of the person with the disability, and don't be afraid to ask the person if you're unsure what to say or do. So when you're advocating, there are some tips that you can use to advocate effectively. So own your identity and understand your strengths and your needs. Once you can accept who you are and what your needs are, advocating will come much more naturally. You'll naturally transition from asking for something you'd prefer to advocating for something that you need. Educate yourself and learn your rights. Use libraries, the internet, email groups, and social networking. Put yourself on mailing lists. Use peer-run, family, and community support programs, referral or crisis hotlines, advocacy groups, and service providers. Attend classes and workshops. Foster relationships with open communication and be confident and firm in your requests, but also polite. Communicate openly and listen to the person that you're working with. Since you understand your needs, you can be confident while you advocate, but being polite will get you much further than being disrespectful. And explain your needs to the level of your comfortability. So when you're advocating for your needs, you might have to explain, why you're asking for an accommodation or modification. It may not be that the person does not want to assist, but rather that they do not understand fully. Make sure you're providing them the opportunity to gain the knowledge and awareness, and then allow them to reciprocate. You should understand that in certain situations, a compromise or collaboration may be successful. There does not have to be only one solution to everything. If your needs can be met in a way that you didn't think of, try to be open to it. Put requests in writing, whether you send a letter or an email, that's okay. Begin and end your letter or email by stating your request or concern. If you need others to be aware of the situation, you can send copies to supervisors or advocacy groups. You may also want to contact legislators or include them on the copies that you send. If someone tells you something, if they make a decision, ask them to put it in writing or send you documentation. If they tell you something is a law, policy, or procedure, ask for a copy. If you disagree with the decision, ask for it in writing along with the reasons for the decision. If you feel you're not getting a straight answer, thank the person for their time and ask to speak to someone else who can address your concern, but use the chain of command to help you find the supervisor or other person you need to communicate with. Know your appeal rights and responsibilities. If you do not get a satisfactory decision, ask what you need to do to resolve the dispute or appeal the decisions. Most organizations and government agencies are required to have a process to review decisions. Request clear written information about the dispute resolution process and your right to appeal a decision that you believe is wrong. Be sure you understand your responsibilities. Reach out for assistance when you need. Sometimes you may do everything you can to effectively advocate for yourself, but you feel like you are not getting anywhere. At that point, it would be time to reach out for assistance. You can contact local centers for independent living like RAMP, attorneys, legislators, or anyone that can help you. And then follow up and say thank you. Keep track of key deadlines and timeframes. Follow up. Remember to thank people along the way. Recognize those individuals that provided helpful information and good service. And to help with advocacy efforts, you must learn more about disability law. These are three of the main laws that protect individuals with disabilities. The first is the Rehab Act, which prohibits discrimination on the basis of disability in programs run by federal agencies, programs that receive federal financial assistance in federal employment, and the employment practices of federal contractors. Another thing to note is that Section 504 of the Rehab Act is where students with disabilities can get protection while they're in the school system if they do not qualify for IDEA. The Americans with Disabilities Act is a huge law. It's a wide-ranging civil rights law that is intended to protect against discrimination based on disability. It requires employers to provide reasonable accommodations and imposes accessibility requirements on public accommodations. And then IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, is a law ensuring services to children with disabilities throughout the nation. IDEA governs how states and public agencies provide early intervention, special education, and related services. So if you want any more information on any of those laws, I would recommend that you look them up online. There is a lot of information out there. So to end, I just want to say thank you for joining us on the webinar. I've included our contact information here if you have any questions. There's our phone number and our website. And thank you for attending, and I hope you have a great day.